I lost my dad last year to suicide, kind of spiraled. I also suffer from mental illnesses. I have major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety, PTSD, and just a little dab of OCD.
I'm affected by mental health, by bipolar disorder, and a previous suicide attempt.
I've had both generalized and social anxiety for a long time now.
My dad was affected. He never received help. He ended up ending his life.
Not everyone who has a mental illness fits into the same mold or stereotype. Someone who's super bubbly, energetic, outgoing, they could be going through something horrible inside and you wouldn't even know because they never show it.
It's like when you were a kid in your elementary school and you had to go run the mile, okay? And you're running it in this field and there's the last kid who's running and he's like struggle bus, like hardcore, like can't breathe, isn't making it, and everyone's just like, come on, just run, just do it. And he's like, but I can't. And not because he doesn't want to, but because he's not built to do that at that time. That's what having a mental illness feels like. It feels like you're struggling for air and someone's just telling you, just breathe.
You don't want people to see that you're drowning, so you'll just kind of do it quietly and without letting anybody know.
Mental health has affected me through my mom and my family. A lot of it has stemmed from abuse that happened within the home, a lot of emotional and physical and sexual abuse that really just sent my mom into a downward spiral of depression. And hers isn't even, it's not ongoing, but it's these massive spurts. So she'll be fine for several years, and then it's one instance that kind of just sends her into that pit, and you don't have any warning, there's no signs, it just kind of happens. She called me one night and said that she had contacted a suicide hotline and that she was telling me all of the things that she wanted me to remember whenever she was gone and all the things that she tried to teach me before she decided to take her life. It was like a real moment for me because she had always been depressed, but that would just mean kind of isolating herself or going in, locking herself in her room for weekends and days at a time. But this time it was real. She was actually considering taking action.
I've heard a lot of times before I started dealing with everything that depression was a woman's disease and like men don't deal with depression, and I mean, that's so far from the truth. Like, I've heard it so many times, just man up. I've said it before, man up. Like, man up to what? Like, brain chemistry? Gender has nothing to do with mental illness. Mental illness doesn't care, guy, girl, whatever.
I was a daddy's girl growing up, like hardcore. I mean, just everything I did, like I was seeking his approval at such a young age, and I was like the little boy that I think he had always wanted. And as a kid, I remember like Sundays, we would get up, like I would go to church with my family or whatever, and then we would go putt-putt and go to Pizza Inn, or we would go watch a movie, we'd go to Pizza Inn. Like Sundays were like our days, like just me and my dad, not me, my dad, my sister, not my mom and me and my dad, like just me and my father.
My dad, he was very adventurous and was always able to create new things in the kitchen, help me with school projects.
He had suffered through many medical conditions over the years. But you know, through everything, we still had faith that we were going to get through it all together, and we'd have that little place out in the lake where he could go fishing.
He progressively got sick. I was probably 9 years old when everything started happening. I was going to dialysis with him.
He'd had many surgeries, he'd had amputations.
Ended up having to get a double bilateral amputee on both of his legs because he got gangrene MRSA and went sepsis in the hospital. Basically one night they told us, they're like, he's not gonna make it. He's not gonna make it through the night. If this is, you have to go say your goodbyes now. He ended up pulling through and making it through the night, and it was this big miracle. But when he came home, he was not the person that I knew. He was not he was not my Sunday friend. He wasn't any of that. And I was probably 15 the first time it got like ugly, and with his like with his words, and the first thing, I mean, he would say this all the time, and he was like, I wish I would have died on the operating table. And I'm 15 years old trying to wrap my head around everything that's going on.
Toward the last years of his life, he was taking a lot of pain management medications. They were prescribed, but they weren't working.
I would hear him just screaming and crying in the living room, and it's probably 3 o'clock in the morning. It wouldn't stop, and I would get up every night, and I would go sit in the living room with him, and I would just hold his hand while he was crying and screaming.
And I remember the last time I saw him before he passed away, he gave me actually, I think I dropped coins or something by my car. He helped me pick them up, and he gave me a big hug, and I knew that hug was different.
We asked for help. We even called the police.
When he committed suicide last year, I was just so angry. I was angry at him. I was angry at myself. I was angry at his family. I was angry at God. I was angry at my mom. I was angry at my sister. I was angry at every single person that I knew.
My husband and I were supposed to grow old together. We were supposed to grow old and retire on a piece of property with a front porch and sit out in our rocking chairs.
And at the point when I lost him, I knew that he's gone, but he had been gone for a really long time. He had been gone for a very, very long time. And that's just, it is what it is.
When I saw my daughter begin to spiral into a different person, I knew something wasn't quite right. But all I could think to myself was, surely she's okay. She's grieving. She's grieving the loss of her father. She's just grieving. We're all grieving.
I spiraled completely. I was running red lights on purpose. And there was just one night that I was, I'm done. I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. I serve no purpose. I am the scum of the earth.
I needed to ask her that question, and I didn't even know how to ask her. I was like, oh God, do I ask her if she wants to kill herself? Hey, that was a real hard question for me to even want to ask. I mean, you can ask somebody what's wrong, and I thought, okay, well, she doesn't feel good. She hasn't felt good a lot lately. You know, I put all these things in my head, kind of little excuses, because surely I wouldn't have to deal with anything like this again.
And I sat in my closet in my apartment, and I took a razor blade to my arm, and my mom called the minute it happened. And I ended up just going to her house.
But I had to ask her, and I couldn't tell her, I couldn't even say the word kill. Do you want to take your life? I just asked her, are you ready to give up? Are you ready to give up? And she shook her head, yes. Okay, you've got to talk to somebody. You have got to talk to somebody.
I got admitted the next morning into the mental facility in Arlington. And they're telling me, hey, you have all these things wrong with you. And I'm like, thank God. Like, I'm not nuts. This makes everything normal. It normalizes everything that, like, I have these nightmares because I have PTSD. I have this feeling that everything has to be perfect because I have anxiety. But at the same time, I don't want to do anything of these perfect things that I want to make happen because I have depression and I can't get out of bed. It's a constant battle, and this illness is not something to take lightly, and it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are. It's all chemistry. It's all just like a Russian roulette. I don't want to be a statistic that didn't make it through it. I don't want to be a statistic at the end of the day that just couldn't do it. And not because they didn't want to, but because they fought for so long that they just couldn't continue to fight.
This whole thing is still a process for me and my mom, as much as she's working through and trying to figure out how to find hope and how to process her emotions and her depression. I'm having to learn, how do I support her? How do I love her well through the process? And it's okay that it's still a process, that it's not all perfect, that we don't have everything figured out, but I'm trusting that we're gonna get better and better and better, just like we have. We're gonna continue to get better, and we're gonna continue to see victory, and that it's not over yet, that God has a plan, and that He's gonna work it out for our good.
Something that's always stuck in my head is a quote from Napoleon. It's, "He who fears being conquered is sure of defeat." There's always the risk of defeat, but you can't be scared of it, because then that's what you're going to focus on.
The task ahead of you is never greater than the strength within you. On days when I just feel defeated or powerless, I just think of that, and I remember everything that I've overcome.
When I was in the hospital, somebody asked me, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, well, I want to help people. She asked me why, because to her that didn't make any sense, because we were in this crap place with a bunch of, people that were dealing with hard things. And she's like, why do you want to help people? And I said, because I'm only 23, and I've seen so much life that it would be so unfair for me not to share that with people. It would be so unfair for me to keep everything that I've learned, and it would be so unfair for me to keep everything that I've seen and not be empathetic towards people who have been through those same things, and for them to feel like they're alone.
Got a daughter that's got a good project, and I want to be part of that project, and I want to help her spark a conversation.
It doesn't matter, you don't have to be diagnosed to know that life is hard. Stuff happens all the time to people, and just because they happen to you just by yourself doesn't mean you can't talk about it.
One time I heard someone say that you never really achieve freedom until you've shared that freedom with someone else.
Support is going through things together. So just like you would go through life together, walk with them through the steps.
I'm Ashley, and I'm fighting hopelessness with honesty.
Hand hug.
We don't believe in hugging.
I'm Amanda, and I'm fighting hopelessness with honesty.
I'm Jake, and I'm fighting hopelessness with honesty.
You can flare your nostrils and smile. Everyone looks hideous when they do it. If y'all want to try also, you say. I'm Kendall, and I'm here to spark a conversation about mental health.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, put it up. Yes.
Jeez, please.
The Backstreet Boy point, they always turn in with their shoulder. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like that,
Yeah.
a little of that, a little of this.
Oh, wow. That's terrible. Okay, yeah.
You guys are gonna run out of things to throw today.
I'm Rosie, and I'm here to spark a conversation about mental health.
Okay, that's it. That's why you're doing.